But I gotta say, Samsung has really impressed me with this, and no one's paying me to say that, folks. What's up, guys? We are back with another S22 Ultra video, and this time we are talking all about cameras. We're going to run a lot of camera tests here. There's 4 cameras on this phone. We've got 2 telephotos, 1 wide, 1 ultra wide, plus the video, the 8K video, the 108 megapixel sensor in this, the 100 times zoom, all that we're going to test. So let's have some fun and let's go into Chinatown and test the low light performance, because of course every camera looks good outdoors in bright sunlight, right, Zinho?
Yeah, it does.
Exactly, but when you go low light, how do these cameras perform against light, get that beautiful bokeh? We're gonna find out. Let's do it. Now, Samsung's touting, of course, this new Snapdragon 8th Gen 1 chipset is gonna really help boost the AI to really help with low light performance, especially in portrait mode as well. It's gonna separate the hairs. They said it's almost like using a real camera. We're gonna find that out. Zeno's got great hair. Zaki's got great hair as well. We're gonna test the hair flip, the look of that, see how that looks against bokeh balls. We've got all these great lights here. And then also, we're gonna see how video works in low light, because sometimes that's make or break it for these smartphones. How can it handle video in dark situations? Let's find out. Okay, so we're gonna try portrait mode first here with, we got these great lights in the background. Now, first thing you're seeing here is this flaring that's coming in from the lens. This is something we're seeing on a lot of smartphones these days. I mean, they're touting all these great camera capabilities, but they can't get the flaring under control. So we'll try to use this as more of an artistic look here by just sort of placing the camera ever so much, but give us a shot. Hey, Zeno, can you bring down the mask? Yep. I mean, I know you want to be Zorro, but So we're gonna see how this separates the hair from the background here. 3, 2, let that umbrella, people walking away with the umbrella. Wow, you're giving me blue steel, man. Blue steel. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, got it. So right off the bat, I have to say it does a pretty good job looking at the hair. You are seeing some separation from the hair and the background at the one time. And of course, you can adjust the bokeh on this to your liking. But I will say, you do notice a difference with the telephoto lens. It's a much softer, more of a pastel color look to it. But when you go to the 1 times, it's more contrasty, more punchy in color. So there is a difference in the lens that the camera is using, which it would be optimal if actually they were both the same, so you have that continuity, which you're not getting here. So I would say the main camera is going to be your star camera, usually is on all smartphones, but telephoto, different look. You can, edit it to make it look the same, but it doesn't have that same punch. Let's try this with this one. Let's try this one more time. Very interesting here. You can see the strands of hair here. Now I'm going to change the background effect here, because sometimes we don't need it so blurry. That's max. The intensity's down to nothing. Does a pretty good job, I have to say, of maintaining the hair. You're seeing a little bit of hair there, pretty natural. I mean, it's not 100%, but it's a smartphone, and that's AI kind of coming into play versus using a proper lens to get that depth of field. So now we're gonna try the 108 megapixel mode on this camera system. Now, it's not a true 108 megapixels, no smartphone ever is, it's pixel binning, but nonetheless, they do show some pretty outstanding results when used correctly. Now, we're gonna try this on this temple here in Chinatown. Beautiful in terms of the lighting right here, the details in the structure and everything else. So we're gonna try to capture as much as we can with this 108. And then let's go to these lanterns. Come here, we're gonna try some low light performance here. Now this is pretty low light right here, okay? This is, if I want to shoot anything darker than this, but we're gonna give this a shot, see how this looks. First impressions, the colors are just popping off the screen. Okay, so first impressions off this 108 megapixel is that it's very, very detailed. Great noise control, so you're not seeing any sort of noise coming into play. Great low light performance. And even when you use the night mode, that even accentuates it even more. And it actually still looks quite natural. I mean, it's got a little bit of an HDR look to it, as night mode does, but it still looks really, really good. But the details that I'm seeing on this screen are awesome. We're gonna see how this exposes for this, is this a dragon? Is this a dragon, Zaki?
Yep.
Let's take this image here. Wow, the colors are just awesome. The details are insane off this camera system. And the fact that it can expose it correctly is really good in terms of the metering inside of this, because some camera phones have a harder time to meter versus others. This is nailing it. Now, of course, I'll try all the different lenses here. Now that is at 1x 0.6. It's a little bit overexposed in certain of the light areas. Now we're gonna get here in terms of the flickering that at ×3. And then ×10, it clears up. AI is doing its magic, sharpens up the image, and it looks really good. It fixes it. It corrected the flicker. So inside of it actually corrects the flicker, which is great. But the detail, I mean, of course, and these are not even the main lens, right? Let's see how the ultra wide. The ultra wide might be the weakest of the 4 cameras I see in terms of detail. Lacking in detail, a little bit overexposed, but again, ultra wides they've never really been as good as the other cameras for the most part. But I got to tell you, this main camera is a powerhouse. I mean, the AI, the exposure, the detail, the colors. In lower light situations, of course, the telephoto lenses don't have the aperture to really allow that light in, so you're going to see it's not as clear, not as sharp. But I would say the sweet spot would be the 3x telephoto zoom lens. 10x, it's pushing it. 3x is your sweet spot. Standard looks great, as we mentioned before, and ultra wide, well, low light, might not be the one that you want to use in low light, unless you just want to capture a scene, but you're not worried about detail that much. So for this shot, I'm going to try some portrait modes here to see how this looks. Try to separate the tiger's, you know, the face from the rest out there. Once again. AI kicks in, really does separate your subject well. Beautiful bokeh, it looks very natural. This is the best Samsung camera I've used to date out of any of their phones, I'll be honest with you. One of the reasons why I left Android after a while, I went over to iPhone, is I just found the camera system in the iPhones really good and very consistent. But I gotta say, Samsung has really impressed me with this. And no one's paying me to say that, folks. This is a very impressive camera. Let's try Pro Photo Mode on this. So I want to try to capture this, but I'm going to change the white balance a little bit here, because this is what you can do. Bring it down to adjust. Crank down the shutter speed. Very detailed. The water droplets that you're seeing here on the tiger's face capture beautifully here. Now, here's the thing about Pro Photo Mode. It's great if you want to capture some, you know, interesting shots and you want more control of your shutter, your ISO, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not going to be the same as using a professional camera system, but you can really accentuate some things if you want to do that. Now, for something like this, if I want to get that bokeh, because I'm using a camera smartphone, I'm just going to use the portrait mode, because I think to me that's the best of the lot here. And it still maintains a lot of detail. A lot of portrait modes lose detail, but it seems that the S22 Ultra's maintaining a lot of that detail in the shot. Let me just bring that exposure down. Nice. Loving it, loving it. Okay. All right, what else to shoot, man? What else to shoot? What do you think? Let's do low light video. Yeah. Low light video. Let's go back to our corner here with the lanterns and shoot some video. How about that? So far, it seems really steady. I gotta be honest with you. I'm walking and I can, you know, obviously I'm not a ninja walker here, but it looks very steady on the screen. It is working well in terms of the exposure, because it is quite dark above me, but here it does expose relatively well. AK24P, here we go. Let's see how it does with low light. Let's see Zaki and Zeno right here. Again, the crop factor is quite significant. So I'm guessing either there's something going on or the camera system, or it's using another sensor in the body, because It seems that it changed lenses. I'm not too sure. Maybe it's the same lens. I have no idea. But I mean, the details are pretty good. I have to say, for low light, it's pretty damn good. I mean, you are going to see some noise creeping in on this. Looking at this, I mean, obviously it is quite pixelated. Once you get to some lighting source like the lanterns above me, it does clean up a little bit, but I'm looking, you can definitely see the noise creeping in at 8K 24 on this camera system. So again, not bad. It's not going to be like a professional camera system out there, but it does the job. And if you're going to shoot video, let's say in a club or a nightclub or a bar, you'll get your image. Just don't expect to be pin sharp like it is in broad daylight. It's not going to happen, but it does a decent job. So now I want to talk about a feature that is really good on this phone, and it is the mic setup here. So you can have Omni mic, capture sound equally from all directions. Front, so if let's say I'm doing an Instagram story or TikTok, and I'm filming somebody here like this gentleman, or here's Zachy, right? My voice from the front of the phone is capturing me. Then here's the rear, so Zachy, talk.
Hello, my name is Zachy and I'm doing a dance.
So you can hear him better than you can hear me. Then of course you have USB, Bluetooth mix. But this is great if you want to do IG stories, TikTok, all that great stuff. Something that other smartphones don't have yet. And I'm glad Samsung's included here. It's only in the Pro Video mode though, so if you want to use this, Pro Video mode only.
Pro Video mode.
That's right. All right, so for our last test, we're going to try the macro capabilities on this because camera's touting macro capabilities, very similar to what the iPhone does. Let's see how well it captures this durian right here. Ow, that hurt. Taking a look at the macro shots on this screen, I would say that the images look a little bit pixelated. And again, there's ample light here, so it could just be the AI. Maybe I need to see it on the computer screen. I don't know. But first impressions, if we're going to compare macro mode from the iPhone to the S22 Ultra, I would say the iPhone takes the lead on this. But anyway, we're going to go into Lightroom. But before we do, oh, you really want me to get in there, Zachy? Fine. Before we go into Lightroom, here's a message from our sponsor.
Here at Geek Culture, we love our keyboards, especially with the all-new Logitech MX Keys Mini. An elegant and functional keyboard, its ultra-responsive rounded keycaps are super stable and quiet for more productivity. There are buttons to enable dictation, microphone audio control, and emojis. The backlit keys illuminate when you get close and matches the lighting of the environment you're in. It lasts up to 10 days on a full charge or 5 months with the backlights turned off. To find out more about the Logitech MX Keys Mini and their latest range of products, head over to logitech.com.
All right, we are now in Lightroom taking a look at images here from the S22 Ultra. Took majority of the shots in low light photography, but also did some in sort of overcast day because it's been the rainy season here in Singapore. Let's look at portrait mode here on my Volkswagen Tiguan for a moment here. And I gotta say, this looked relatively good. This looks very natural for portrait mode. And I'll show you the before edit, then after edit, before edit, after edit. Again, edits are personal preference you may like or dislike, but let's just look into the raw image here, or the JPEG without any edits, and you can see that there's a lot of detail here. You can see the water droplets here, and you see the nice fall off that looks relatively natural. You know, from the front of the Tiguan to the rear, you see how it gradually just goes out of focus and then to the background here. Of course, you can adjust this into the phone to your liking, but it does look well. It does look good. And let's just take a look here. Again, you have a little bit of play with these files, but it can look a little bit crunchy if you overdo it with the edit. So just take that in mind with any smartphone photography. Let's look at another image here. This is, of course, was with the T1 as well. And again, a lot of nice detail here as well. This is before edit, after edit, before edit, and after edit. But there's a lot of detail you're seeing here. And the headlamps looks really good with the water droplets here. This is a very good smartphone camera, especially in ample lighting. Now let's look at the front-facing camera for a moment. Now this is a picture of myself that I took in the Geek Culture studio. This has been edited. I will show you the before edit here, just to kind of go over the skin tones. It's got much more of a, I would say, where the iPhone has much more of a warmer tone, this has a more of a cooler tone, but it's more accurate, I feel, than the iPhone in this regard. But let me just show you what it looks like after edit here. And the nice thing I like about it is the details here around the skin tone and the beard here, right here, because this is something that Samsung always had a problem with their front-facing cameras previously, is even when you turned off beauty mode and all the skin smoothing and everything else, there would be some sort of softening happening. But now they're allowing the photographer or the owner of the phone to actually, dictate what they want. And if you want the detail, it's there for you. And this is a really sharp picture for a front-facing camera. I mean, I popped this on Instagram or Facebook. It looks great. You're going to see a little bit of noise creeping in here, but again, that's something that can be reduced with, Lightroom or Luminar or, Topaz denoise. But I have to say, I'm really impressed with the detail coming out of this front-facing camera. Okay, let's go to some portrait modes here. This was something that we took of Zeno at the Chinatown area. We've shown here in the video already, but here is the edited version. This is before edit, and here's after edit. Again, you can play around with the files here. There's some dynamic range here. But let's look a little bit closer here at the hairs. We're seeing the nice separation, and this is something that Samsung was touting with these new camera systems with the AI built into it, that it works better with portrait mode. And I have to say, this is really pretty accurate. I mean, if you were to use a normal camera, you would get something like this as well. Again, getting a little bit of that flaring coming into play. This is something that smartphones are having a hard time with. It's just part and parcel with the way the lens is designed. But I mean, if you use it correctly, it can be quite creative. Now let's look at another shot here of the main camera to show the difference. Now, of course, this is going to be higher resolution. The colors are much more punchier, as you can see before edit and after edit. But a lot of play in the files, and look at the detail in his shirt, his jacket here, the backpack. There's a lot of detail here, which is nice because usually portrait mode, you lose detail because of all the AI coming into play. But Samsung's done a pretty good job in terms of maintaining detail, but giving that portrait, that background defocus so you can play with that a little bit more. Okay, now let's look at the main camera here in terms of low light photography. This has been edited a little bit. You can see that I was focusing right here. There's enough detail here. Noise reduction is coming into play, but it looks relatively good. This is before edit, and then here is after edit. Before edit and after edit. This is with the main camera. Very impressive for lower light photography. Here is with night mode. All right. Now you're going to see a little bit more of that HDR look coming into play here, as most night modes do, but it does a relatively decent job of maintaining detail, still with some decent dynamic range. This is before edit, and then after edit, before edit, after edit. I would always recommend just kind of punching the colors up to your liking with any sort of photography out there, because nothing straight out of camera will look optimal. Here's a great shot that I took with the main camera, just to kind of show you the detail that it's able to capture even in lower light photography of this dragon head here. Look at how sharp this is. This looks absolutely fantastic with the buildings in the background. This is with the main camera. Here's before edit, and here's after edit, before edit and after edit. Absolutely love the quality coming out of this main camera. This is Samsung's best cameras to date, honestly. Really, really impressed with it. And here is the 3x zoom as well. So we show this in the video, but look at the detail when you look up close. This is absolutely awesome. And if you think this is sort of mushy here, this of course is a painted dragon. So this is actually what you're seeing. It looks like almost like watercolors, because that's what it looked like in person. But the detail there is really, really stunning. A couple more shots here of these tigers. Portrait mode. Look at the detail that we're seeing here. The paint structure here, the detail through the tiger's head and through the paws and the legs. Absolutely awesome. Really impressed with that. And let's talk about black and white photography, because you can do this with the filters in the S22 Ultra with any of the cameras, and it's actually very impressive. So if you do like black and white photography, you're going to really like what this camera provides. Again, you're not going to get as much noise because, of course, it's just black and white, but I mean, this is really, really nice. Very happy with the images that I got out of this as well. Look at the detail here. Very, very impressive. I would say the black and white gives you a little bit more detail than even the color on that matter, but again, black and white versus color, you're always going to get that. Okay, let's go into macro real quick, because I was talking about macro photography. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, it's not as good as the iPhone. Okay, so this is, not good. A couple shots here. Try to zoom in on this. It's really pixelated, folks. So while I mean, I think Samsung tried to add this macro capabilities. It's not as good as what the iPhone's producing right now. Maybe that'll improve with a firmware update in the near future. So anyway, those are some shots from Lightroom. Let's go back to my final thoughts. All right, as we saw from Lightroom, the image quality out of the S22 Ultra is very impressive for a smartphone, especially the main camera. Now, the wide angle, lower light, not so good. In brighter conditions, it actually fares quite decent. The telephoto lenses, the 3x to me is the sweet spot. It's still really sharp, really good clarity to the image. 10x is struggling a little bit. I'm not going to do the 100x zoom. Honestly speaking, we tried it, but it's neither here nor there. It's more of a gimmick to me than anything else. You're never going to use it. But let's talk about video for a second, because this is where I also think the S22 Ultra does really shine. 8K only in good light, but again, would you use 8K? I don't know. I think 4K 1080 is going to be the sweet spot for most people, even 1080 for them, because of Instagram, TikTok, you can't do 4K in that stuff yet, right? And that's primarily how people are going to use their smartphones for creating content, is in that range. But if you are a professional videographer and you do want to like a sort of a small B cam, I think the 4K will definitely suffice in that regard. The colors coming out of the sensors are great. The clarity, the image quality is really, really good, even for photography. I mean, this is the best Samsung camera system I've seen on any of their phones to date. They've really done a great job with it. But this is still early in 2022. I mean, right now, this is the king of the smartphones, in my personal opinion, when it comes to image quality. I think Samsung's knocked it out of the park. A lot of the great features, as I mentioned, the microphone option where you can select which microphone you want, the front or the rear Omni. These are great attributes to have, especially for content creators. Hopefully, Apple answers this, and other manufacturers do this as well, because it is a necessity, especially in our day and age, and how we shoot content. But I have to say, Samsung has done a tremendous job with this. Now, I know there's a lot of comparisons out there with the iPhone 13 Pro Max and, of course, the S22 Ultra. We didn't want to do that because, in my opinion, the ecosystems are very different. You're not going to switch to Samsung if you're in the Apple ecosystem, and vice versa. If you are in the Android ecosystem, you're not going to go to iPhone just because of the camera. I don't think. I may be wrong on this, but for me, I believe the ecosystem is much more than the camera itself. It's in terms of how you share your files, in terms of syncing with your other devices. All these things come into play, and that's why someone that's in the Apple ecosystem will have a harder time going to Android, and vice versa. But to each their own. I would love to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on this? Anyway, like always, subscribe to the channel if you can. Like this video. Follow us on Facebook. Stay safe out there, and I'll chat to you soon. Take care.